All right, so we're going to get started today. And today's presentation, I titled it Confusing Cats, because what I want to do is talk about all the different felines that people could encounter in North America. And I'm going to be your presenter. My name's Daryl Radijak. I'm a wildlife biologist, a large carnivore specialist, as a matter of fact. And usually what I do for all these talks, there's some folks here that have no idea who Daryl Radijak is. So usually what I do is just let people know a little bit about my background. I did graduate with a degree in wildlife management. This is way back in 1992, so it tells you how old I am. But I started my career in the 90s, and I was actually manager of a facility called the Appalachian Bear Center. So I was working with large carnivores pretty much shortly after getting my degree. And so, with that experience working with bears in the Smokies, I soon started working for the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. And because of my bear experience, I was soon promoted, and I became the bear, deer, and elk coordinator for the state of Tennessee. I did that for, I believe, 7 years. And the director of TWRA saw something in me and he promoted me to chief of wildlife. And so instead of being over the big game animals in Tennessee, I was over all wildlife in Tennessee for about 5 years. But here's the thing, as a little boy, I loved watching like Marty Stauffer, Wild America, Mutual of Omaha, Wild Kingdom. And I always wanted to live and work in the Rockies. And so 2015, I made the jump from working for the state of Tennessee to jumping to the federal side of things. And I became a federal wildlife biologist. And so started working in New Mexico, Santa Fe National Forest, lots of cougars and really cool animals out there. I still have a day job, but my passion is education. I love teaching people about wildlife. I've won a couple of awards for the educational programs I do, and I'm pretty happy to do it. It's something that just makes me happy to teach people about the animals that I love. So, having said that, I'm not the only presenter here. I'm the only presenter, but I'm not the only one that puts this information together. I know lots of people in the field of wildlife biology. And so two folks that helped me put this particular talk together, Mark Payton, he was a wildlife technician on the Valles Caldera, New Mexico. He studied cougars, and he's currently pursuing his PhD down at New Mexico State University. And so super smart guy, has been on hundreds and hundreds of cougar kill sites. Fantastic guy. Another person that helped me with this is Stephanie Payne. Really, really good friend of mine. She got her degree from Oregon State University, and she did a lot of work with human wildlife conflict. So she coordinated some of the really cool, gruesome stuff, which involved animal attacks. But anyway, both those folks did a wonderful job getting information, getting pictures to me to help me develop this talk. So with that, I am going to jump into the presentation and hopefully teach you a little bit about the cats, or the felines, of North America. So I'm going to start with this slide and let you know I used to get a ton of photographs. Let me make sure everyone's muted. I used to get a ton of photographs where people would send things in and say, oh, I saw a cougar, or I saw this cat, and they would want me to either verify or identify the cat that they saw. And oftentimes it was trying to identify a cougar. And I will tell you, of all these photos, that many of these were photos that were sent to me, or people inquired about. Of all these photos up on the screen, there is only one that is a cougar, or a mountain lion, as we call it. And if you can't guess, it's this one right here. It's kind of ironic because a lot of times people will see a cougar looking cat and it's relatively small, and they will think it is just a juvenile cougar. But what many folks don't know is those young cougar offspring, when they're really young, they have spots. So they don't look like their mom when they're really young. So anyway, Today's class is going to kind of help teach you about what to look for when you're identifying different types of cats in North America. Before we get started, though, I do have one favor. And if you've been in this class uh, before, I don't want you to tell anyone, but what I'm going to do, I don't know if you have a piece of paper or pen or your phone or something. I'm going to show something up on the screen. I just want you to write down what it says. It'll just be a sentence. So get ready to read what is up on the screen and then just write it down and we'll talk about it later. Are you ready? Oh, if you didn't see that, here, let me do it again. Just focus on the sentence. So everyone should have gotten it by now, but if you didn't, here's the last one. Okay, so that's all I needed. Thanks. Just remember what that sentence said, and we'll talk about it later. And so what we're going to do, we're going to jump into this world of North American cats. And so my first question to everyone, and if you want to put things in the chat, go ahead. We'll try to keep everyone's microphone off unless I call on someone. But my first question to everyone is, how many species of wild cats live in North America? If you have a second, you could jot it down in the chat. I'll give you 10 seconds to answer. And don't worry, there's no right or, well, there are right or wrong answers, but nobody's grading anyone in this. I'm not going to go on until someone takes at least one guess in the chat. Trish, you write something down. Okay. Thanks, Darcy. Darcy says 4. Mick says 7. All right. Fantastic guesses. You guys are right. 4, 7, 5, 5, 7. You guys are all right around it. Believe it or not, the actual answer is 6. Very good, Darcy. So what I'm going to do is we're going to talk about those 6 species of wild cats that live in now, when I'm talking North America, let me be more specific. We're talking United States. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about those 6 species. Now, there are 4 what I call small cats. They're small to medium-sized cats. And there's 2 really, really big cats that can live in North America. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk first about the small cats, and we'll go into more depth about them. But the first one we're going to talk about is probably one of the most widespread cats we have. It's the bobcat, and the genus and species is Lynx rufus. And you can see from the range map here, it covers pretty much most of the United States, a good chunk of North America, most of the United States. There are a couple of gaps in the Midwest where they were killed out and they haven't really recovered yet. But for the most part, you can find bobcats all over the U.S. Another cat we have in North America, which is very, very similar to the bobcat, is this one here. And it's the Canadian lynx, or the lynx, what we typically call it. And if you look at the genus and species, it's Lynx canadensis. Now, if you recall, the bobcat is also a lynx genus. And so they're super, super similar. And the best way to understand between bobcats and lynx is a lynx is the northern version of a bobcat. You can see from their range, they pretty much occupy most of Canada. They do drop down into the Rocky Mountains and a couple of places right along that northern border of the U.S. But the thing with lynx is they're cold weather cats, or very similar to bobcats, but they love cold weather. And we're going to talk a little bit about the species specifics with them. Another cat, a small cat that not many people know about, is this one here. Does anyone know what that is? Before I flash it up there. Oh, very good, Darcy. Yes, it is the ocelot, Leopardus pardalis. The reason not many people think or know about this cat, look at the range. It's all throughout Central America, up through Mexico, and it just touches the Texas border. There's a couple studies going on regarding ocelot right along that Texas border. And so it sometimes even ventures into Arizona. but that's one species that not many people know about for the United States. And then last but not least is this guy, which is a really cool cat. Hardly anyone ever knows anything or much about it. This cat, good guess with the Fisher cat. A Fisher cat is pretty much a pine marten, which well, a Fisher, a Fisher is in the weasel family. It's very similar to a pine marten. It's not in the cat species at all. Very good guess though. This is actually a Jaguarundi. It's Puma jaguarundi. But if you notice, it's very cougar-like, but they're small. They're much tinier than a cougar. The reason we don't know much about them in the United States is it only touches a tiny, tiny, tiny portion of the southernmost part of Texas. And occasionally we get them spotted there. So they are not widespread throughout North America. They're doing well in Central and South America, but this cat can actually be found within the US borders on occasion. So those are the 4 small cats. So let's switch over now to what I call the big cats. And this particular guy is going to take up a big topic of tonight's discussion. And so this is my favorite cat. It is the cougar, also known as the mountain lion, also known as a catamount. There's a whole bunch of different names for this guy, but its scientific or Latin name is Puma concolor. Concolor means one color, uniform color. So pretty much that light brown, it's called tawny. But this cat, if you look at the range where cougars are found in North America, this is where cougars are found in North America. If you were to arrive in North America in 1500, this is where they were found. They pretty much went from north to south, as well as east to west. The problem is Eastern Europeans arrived on the continent in the 1400s, 1500s, and they didn't like animals that competed with them. And so, unfortunately, they were very good at wiping them out. And so, over the course of the next 300 years, 400 years, the early Europeans wiped out the cougars to their current range right now, which is pretty much the western half of the United States or western half of North America. We do have a population of cougars down in Florida, and this other segmented population is in the Dakotas. You often hear about cats coming out of the Dakotas, but for the most part, they're a western species. Now, having said that, they are doing well. They are expanding eastward again, trying to reclaim their old territory. So cougars found in these hatched areas, there's conformations, multiple conformations every single year. So once in a while, you get it extended further even beyond there. Even in Tennessee, we had one wander all the way to Connecticut that we'll talk about. But for the most part, cougars are found in the western half of the United States, which leads us to the last large cat in North America, and that's this guy. Really cool cat. That is the jaguar, Panthera onca. And so we'll talk in more detail about its characteristics, but if you look, again, mostly the Mexico, Central America, it occasionally touches Arizona, New Mexico, and we have sightings. In fact, recently we picked up another jaguar that showed up in Arizona. So every couple of years, one gets picked up on a trail camera. It typically doesn't stay, heads back down into Mexico, but every once in a while, jaguars are actually documented in the United States. So with that, what I'm going to do, I just told you the 6 species of big cats. I just want to tell you a couple of cat facts because cats are really, really cool. And so let's start with the bobcat again, Lynx rufus. This is the one that's pretty much found throughout the United States, most of the US and southern parts of Canada. Now, if you look at the bobcat, the description, most people know what they look like. They're a rather smaller cat, anywhere from 10 to 40 pounds. One of the things that kind of stands out with the bobcat is these ear tufts, but they don't always stand out. Sometimes you barely even see those. Sometimes they're pretty prominent, but A lot of times you don't even see those ear tufts. However, their ears are very indicative of their species because if you look behind the ears, they have a very distinct black and white coloring, like stark difference between black and white. So that white spot really, really shows up. Now, cougars will have a similar type of pattern, but it's not near as white. It's usually a much darker color and they don't stand out. So whenever you see a photo of, if you just have the shot of the head and you're only seeing the bright white, most of the time it would be a bobcat, but very indicative ears with those black and white patches there. The other thing that stands out with bobcats is they have a bobbed tail, so a much shorter tail than most people think of on a cat. Having said that, that picture right there is a super short tail. They're not always that short. They can be 6 to 8 inches long. So even though this is a much longer tail, it's still nowhere near the length of, say, a cougar or any of the other cats. So those bobtails are indicative of bobcats. Primary diet, when you look at bobcats, they're eating small mammals. So chipmunks, squirrels, woodchucks, rabbits, they love those things. They also love birds. They're cats. They're really good at catching birds. And so a lot of people think that bobcats will eat larger mammals, like this deer here. If that deer was critically injured and couldn't move, yes, a bobcat could probably take it down, but usually that size animal is too big for a bobcat. However, they will go after much, much smaller deer. This is like a little yearling deer, but what bobcats particularly love are the fawns because they're about the size of the bobcat. So the bobcat has no problem taking those down. And so they will eat some mammals, larger mammals, but typically it's the young of the larger mammals. Now, did you know, this is interesting, though they're extremely rare, bobcats can be melanistic or can be black in coloration. I want folks to know this is not common. I believe there's only it's either 8 or 9 known documented cases in North America of a melanistic bobcat. And there's pictures of them on the web, but it's not all that common, but a bobcat can carry that melanistic or that black coloration. So what about lynx? Very similar to the bobcat. Remember, this is the northern version of the bobcat. So because they're up in the cold, higher elevations, they're a little bit heavier, a little bit bulkier. Those bigger bodies handle the cold weather better. The cool thing with lynx, those ear tufts are even more prominent, usually much longer, much darker. They too have the bobbed tails, but the really cool thing for the lynx, and thanks for saying that, Trish, because that's what separates them from the bobcats. Because lynx are pretty much living on snow for a good part of the year, especially up in Canada and those northern altitudes. So they have huge northern latitudes, not altitudes. So they have these huge paws, which pretty much act as snowshoes. And that allows them to travel across the snowpack. Now, why do they need those big paws? Well, their primary diet is the snowshoe hare. And look at the feet on the snowshoe. Again, it's just like wearing snowshoes. It allows these animals to run across the top of the snow without sinking in. And so the lynx is specifically designed to chase snowshoe hares across the snowpack. And so did you know, this is really cool because I was pretty close to this site, but Colorado undertook one of the largest carnivore reintroduction programs. About 1999, 2000, they released 218 lynx in the Southern Rockies. Now remember, lynx they thrive in these snow areas. So these high elevation mountains in the Southern Rockies is a great place for lynx. Lots of snowshoe hare, lots of snow in the wintertime, and they did fairly well. So we still have lynx in Southern Colorado. All right, that's going to take us to the other 2 cats, which are not found in abundance, but I will mention them. If you look at the description, much smaller cats. The ocelots usually 10 to 35 pounds. The jaguarundi is only 8 to 20. Remember, I said they're small. They're like house cats. If you look at the coat on them, the ocelot looks more like a tiger, very tiger-like stripes, spots on the coat, whereas the jaguarundi is more like a cougar. It's that pale one color brown look to them. They have medium-sized, the ocelot has a medium-sized tail. And again, the jaguarundi is very cougar-like, has a much, much longer tail. And what do they eat? Pretty much the same thing those other small cats eat. So they dine on small mammals, marmots, possums, mice, you name it, whatever they can catch. They also like birds. So whether or not it's quail, California quail, roadrunners, they love eating those things. Because they're in the South, they'll even dine on reptiles. And so did you know that although we don't see ocelots or jaguarundi much in the United States, their overall species population is doing quite well because they're very, very they're doing very well in South America and Central America. So even though it seems like they should be endangered, they're not endangered worldwide because they're hanging on in the South America and Central America continent. So that's going to take us to the big cats. And I'm going to start with jaguar because we're going to spend most of the time talking about cougar. And so with the jaguar, Panthera onca, well, what does it look like? Oh, wrong jaguar. Sorry about that. They're huge cats. They weigh anywhere from 120 to 250 pounds. These are gigundous cats. And so it would be a sight to see them, but I'm not sure you'd want to see them up close because they are a very intimidating looking cat. One thing that's really cool is the pattern on their coat. They have this rosette pattern, and the best way to identify between a jaguar and a leopard is the jaguar. The best description is they have spots within their spots. So if you look at these little dots inside the bigger oval, you can see those spots within a spot. The leopards don't have that. If the leopards will have this larger one, but they will not have those smaller spots inside there. So that's a good way. If you look at a large cat in a zoo, you can tell between a leopard and a jaguar. Now, the cool thing with jaguars, and we'll mention this a couple of times, they too, like the bobcat, they can have this melanistic coloration. They can be black. Now, if you notice, even though it's black looking, you can still see the rosette pattern underneath there. So they're not truly solid black color, but the melanism that's shown in their fur makes them appear mostly black, even though they still maintain those spots underneath. So with that, what do jaguars eat? Pretty much anything they want. They dine on as many as 87 different species. So pretty much anything that moves. Obviously, they'd like to eat those bigger mammals because there's more bang for the buck. So capybaras down in South America, a huge, world's largest rodent, is a primary food source for them. But they'll also feed on those anacondas, those large pythons and large snakes that we have in South America. They'll even go after some aquatic species like alligators or crocodiles. Jaguars, unlike many other cats, love the water. So they have no problem going into the water to go after a prey item. So pretty interesting stuff what they will feed on. Now, did you know, and I mentioned it before, jaguars occasionally wander up into Arizona, and we started getting pictures routinely of a jaguar named El Jefe right along that Arizona border. It is actually on the Coconino National Forest. And so we get pictures of it every once in a while. In fact, they just got another picture of El Jefe down in Mexico last year. One of the things that's really cool is you can identify different jaguars by the pattern that they have. The coat with those spots is very much like a human fingerprint. It's unique to each individual. So you can actually look at the patterning on there to tell individual jaguars. Unfortunately, the picture on the upper right was a jaguar that wandered into Arizona about 5 or 6 years ago. And unfortunately, its pelt ended up on the black market in Mexico. The good news is there was a new jaguar picked up on a trail camera just a couple months ago, again in Arizona. So they definitely do wander across that border. And who knows, before long, maybe we'll have a female. Most of them are all males, but maybe we'll have a female wander into Arizona and take up residence. So that's going to lead us to the species that's the highlight of tonight's presentation, which is the cougar, the scientific name Puma concolor. Now, description of this, they're large cats. They're not as large as jaguars, but they can go up to 200 pounds. Typically, they're in that 80 to 120, a big one, 150 pounds. Those really big ones that push 200 tend to be up more in the colder climates. But they are big cats. These are not like bobcats, which are 30 pounds. These are usually well over 100 pounds, much, much larger than the typical bobcat that we see. The coloration, very distinctive coloration. In fact, I'm going to tell you about some of those distinct patterns that we look for when we're trying to identify these cats in photo. But concolor means uniform color or one color. And it's this tawny color, this light brown color. But they're not totally brown. Their underside tends to be a little white or a yellowish coloration. But for the most part, they are a solid one color brown. But you can see their ear pattern. They have a little bit of light spot on the back with a darker surrounding ears. But this tip of the tail is usually black. And it's a much thicker, heavier tail. It is not really thin like a typical cat that you think of. But that black tip tail is one of those things we look for if we can see a picture of the tail in a photo. So that long tail, dark tip is definitely a key characteristic for a cougar. Now, what do cougars eat? They have a primary diet. They love what we call ungulates or hooved animals. And so if you're any type of deer or elk, beware because cougars love to eat you. And so with cougars primarily being a Western species right now, mule deer are one of their favorites, followed by elk. But if cougars were back in the eastern half of the US, you can sure as heck bet that white-tailed deer would be their primary food source. Having said that, they will also eat small mammals. And so anything that a cougar can capture and kill, they will eat. So woodchucks, beware. The bad thing, though, is they're really good at eating those slow, tasty animals like livestock, goats, and sheep, and things like that. When animals have been trained or domesticated not to run away, it makes it really easy for the cougars. And so sometimes they get a bad name for feasting on livestock. And so speaking of a name, what's in a name? So we're going to be talking about cougars. And so let's focus on the name for the cougar. So remember, it's Puma concolor. And because of that Latin name Puma, I believe that's what they mostly call them in South America. But Puma is another name for a cougar. The one that many people use is mountain lion. Sometimes you hear it. I've only heard it a couple of times, but some people will say catamount. In some of the mountains of, especially the East and the Appalachians, they'll call them, or they'll refer to them as painters. And I think that is a play on the word panther. And so are cougars panthers? Well, believe it or not, it's a colloquial term that's been used. It's been bastardized in North America. But the term panther typically, or scientifically at least, comes from the genus Panthera. Those are the big cats. These are the biggest cats of the world. And they belong to this genus Panthera. So there is the African lion, Panthera leo. There's also the tiger, huge cat. That's Panthera tigris. There is the leopard in Africa and Southeast Asia, and that is Panthera pardus. And then last but not least is the jaguar that we're used to in South America and Central America, and every once in a while that southern part of the US, and that's Panthera onca. So from a scientific standpoint, a panther should refer to one of these four species. So what about black panthers? Because you hear people talking about black panthers all the time. Well, what a black panther is, it's the melanistic version of two of those big cats. It's either the leopard, which again is found in Africa and in Southeast Asia or Southwest Asia, Asia and Africa. It's also the melanistic version of the jaguar, which is found primarily in South America and in Central America. Here's the thing when it comes to melanism in these big cats. Studies have been done to show that melanism typically gets displayed in those real thick, lush jungle environments, like in the rainforest of Brazil. When you sweep up Central America into Mexico, yes, you're still in jaguar range, but then you're getting into this desert, dry, not very vegetative area of northern Mexico, which is not conducive to any animal being black because you'll be scorched by the sun. And so there's never been anything documented of a black panther ever in the United States. And so when it comes to black panthers, there's never been anything that has ever been documented as far as a free-ranging black panther in North America. Lots of legends and myths, but nothing has ever been documented. Well, if it's not going to be a melanistic jaguar, why isn't it just a melanistic cougar? Well, believe it or not, there's never been a known black cougar that's ever been documented in history. And it seems, well, we just haven't found one, but you could have a black cougar. Well, believe it or not, they've done a lot of genetic work with cougar, and it appears that they do not carry the genes necessary for melanism to display in the cougar. And so that's one of the reasons why we've never had any known documented black cougar ever in the history of mankind. So with that, did you know, and this is really cool, I mentioned cougars have been extirpated from most of their eastern range. That's when the early Europeans came, they started just wiping out animals that they would compete with. And obviously we had a huge influence coming from the East Coast moving westward. And so we wiped out a ton of animals. And it wasn't just cougars. We wiped out wolves. We wiped out almost all the black bears, deer, turkey, and any of these larger animals that were easy to see and kill. We did, I'd say a good, but it's a horrible job of completely wiping them out. And so the cool thing is cougars actually hung on in some of the most inhospitable areas that they could find, namely the Florida Everglades. And so even though cougars were wiped out from pretty much most of the eastern half of North America, they have always been found in those Florida Everglades. They were never completely wiped out from those areas. And so sadly, and this is the ironic thing, those cougars that lived or sustained themselves in the southern part of Florida, they're called Florida panthers, which they're not technically a panther because technically the panthers are those four other species, but it's that colloquial native term that they call them Florida panthers. But I assure you, they're just plain regular brown cougars that live in that Florida Everglades area. So with that, I keep mentioning these cougars in the East, and we'll call them Eastern cougars. We're going to talk about these for just a little bit. And so let's talk about that cougar range. I just explained what it was. So way back when, 500 years ago, cougars were the most widespread terrestrial animal in the whole Western Hemisphere. And so when I say Western Hemisphere, we're talking North, South, and Central America. And so they were everywhere in the 1600s. Again, these early Eastern Europeans arrived, and we decided we didn't like animals competing with us. And so they wiped them out. And so the current range, you can see some of these gaps where cougars no longer live. They no longer have breeding populations in these areas. And so what happened here? What happened in these areas? How could they possibly wipe them out? Well, it's understandable. Now, this is kind of a really cool timeline because in the fossil record, 300,000 years ago, there was cougars pretty much found throughout North America. But then something happened to them. And it's believed, whether or not it was a larger, one of those Pleistocene era, like you had cave bears, you had saber-toothed tigers, things like that, whether or not they wiped out cougars, but you could not find cougars in North America about 10,000 BC. And so they believe about 8,000 BC, cougars survived in South America, so they started moving northward and they repopulated that North American continent. So by the early 1500s, they were pretty much found, like I said, north to south, east to west, all over North America. But then these Europeans arrived and they said, we don't like cougars, let's kill them out. And so you started seeing this indiscriminate cougar killing everywhere. And again, it's not just cougars, it's pretty much all animals that the Eastern Europeans encountered. And so they started 1600, so what is that, 350 years ago? They had bounties on them in Connecticut. They had bounties in 1742 in Massachusetts, in Pennsylvania in 1807, all the way out to Oregon. Oregon was still getting settled, 1843. Again, bounties there. So by 1850, cougars are pretty much almost gone from the eastern half of North America. And literally by the early 1900s, there is pretty much no record of them. And so for 100 years, almost 100 years, no sign of, other than the population down in Florida, we have no documented records, confirmed cougars east of the Mississippi. And so the Fish and Wildlife Service, about a few decades ago, said, well, let's find the existence of eastern cougars. They got to be out there. And so they looked and looked for a few decades, could not find any record of them. And so the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service pretty much declared, I think it was 2018, 2017, somewhere around there, they declared that eastern cougars are officially extinct. And this was like the last known specimen of an eastern cougar. Well, not exactly, because when we used to classify animals, we used to look at morphological, and I hate using this jargon, but physical characteristics that said this cougar is a little bit different, so we're going to call this one subspecies and we'll call that another subspecies. And so they felt that eastern cougars were a bit different than western cougars, but that's not necessarily the case, because with the advent or the improvements in genetics, what they found is the eastern cougar is the exact same animal as a western cougar. So there's really nothing to declare extinct. They could declare cougars extirpated or gone from the east, but they weren't extinct, because eastern cougars and western cougars, there's really no difference between the two of them. And so let's talk about this cougar range. And so I keep showing you range maps, and understand range maps are best estimates of where breeding populations of cougars are. And so this dark green area is where we find most of the breeding populations. This hatch mark in the Midwest is where these western cougar populations are now expanding eastward again. And for the most part, in the eastern half of the US, we don't have cougars other than the Florida population. But there's hope, because we're starting to get more and more instances where a cougar is showing up where it hasn't existed for over 100 years. So 2011, there was actually a cougar killed on the highway in Connecticut. Now, it left a trail that they actually nicknamed the Cougar Traveler, but it left a trail as it supposedly left the Black Hills area and ended up crossing in southern Canada through New York and ended up on the highway in Connecticut. Another really popular cat was in 2015 that showed up in Western Tennessee. And that was actually right when I was getting ready to leave Tennessee. And it was photographed a whole bunch of times when it was in Tennessee. Now, both of those cats, they pulled DNA from them, and both of those cougars ended up testing to have genetics that trace them back to that Black Hills area in the Dakotas. Now, there was another cat that was killed in 2008 that was right on the Alabama-Georgia line. And when they did the genetics on that one proved to be one of those Florida cats. So here's the hope, folks. Range expansion is real. And so there's always the chance of an occasional wanderer coming up into those eastern states. Now, I will tell you, with the advent of trail cameras, when they do wander, we're going to know about it, but it is happening. And so if you look at that recent expansion of mountain lions, they're coming our way. If you live anywhere in the east, they are coming our way. Hopefully they'll get there within my lifetime, but I don't know if I'm going to hold my breath yet. But here's the thing. Wait a darn tootin' minute, because people everywhere are seeing cougars all the time. And so how can that be? Well, let me do a little case study here, because I mentioned that cat that showed up in Tennessee. And again, this was right as I was getting ready to leave the state, but I was still working with a bunch of the folks that were involved with this particular cat. So here it is, a cougar from that western expansion shows up in the northwestern portion of Tennessee. And the reason it showed up is we will make a confirmation when we have absolute perfect photograph evidence or DNA evidence. And so Northwest Tennessee, in September of 2015, we get this photo. And as soon as we got it, we're like, wow, that is a cougar. We know, because it's got that cougar shape to it. You can tell it's a pretty big looking cat compared to the corn in the background, but there's that distinctive, thick, heavy, long black tail. So we know this is a cougar. And so we actually sent wildlife officers out there to confirm its location, because sadly people send us pictures of cougars, but they're not from where the people claim they are from. And so we had officers verify, yes, this trail camera was there. Yes, that cougar was standing exactly there. So it was the first confirmed cougar in Tennessee since, I think, 1930s. And this was back in 2015. Lo and behold, about a week later, we get another. After having no photos at all, we start getting evidence of this cat in different places. So September 26th, sadly, there was a bow hunter that shot at the cat. I don't know if he was afraid or whatever. He didn't kill it, but he was able to draw blood. He just nicked the animal, and we took DNA, and sure enough, it was a cougar. A couple weeks later, we start getting photographs just popping up all the time. So a couple in November, a couple in December, very crystal clear. You know this is a cougar. And these photographs keep coming in like every week from this cougar in this area. Winter comes along, and that cat settles down along the Tennessee River, fairly unpopulated, but we're still getting photographs of it. So a couple months later, we get a photograph in February, and then again in August, and then it goes on the move again. And we capture it in September the following year on the move. And so chronologically, we could see where this cat moved eastward in the state, kind of hung out here for about 6 months, and then it started heading south. Very good pictures. We've got confirmations. And then guess what? It disappeared. No more pictures. But what do you think happened? So did this prove that Tennessee had cougars all along? A lot of people claimed it did. A lot of people were saying, see, I told you we had cougars. Believe it or not, this evidence, it actually suggests that Tennessee does not have a population at all. Because when that one cat showed up, they had 9 photographs of it. And then it disappeared in 2016. And here we are 8 years later, and not a single photograph again. And so, with the advent of trail cameras nowadays, I will tell you, a few decades ago, cougars could have wandered in the east pretty much undetected or unconfirmed because of the lack of cameras. But nowadays, in today's age, if any cougar steps foot east of the Mississippi, it'll go a little while, but it's not going to go too long before it's photographed. There are so many trail cameras, and there's so many of these things. Everyone carries a camera with them, so they will get photographed. So what about what about the thousands and thousands of observations that occur each and every year? Well, I will say without a doubt, we literally have hundreds, if not thousands, of people claiming to have seen a cougar. Now, I will tell you there is one more cat we need to discuss. Now, it's not a free-ranging wildcat, but it's this guy, the house cat, Felis catus. It's a domesticated cat from thousands of years ago that everybody, not everybody, but lots of people have. So description, these house cats can weigh anywhere from 5 to 40 pounds. We have the luxury of feeding them as much or as little as we want. But here's the thing, folks. They come in multiple colorations. So most people think of a house cat as these two guys. Oh, I'm not going to, you see that? I'm not going to mistake that as a cougar. There's absolutely no way. Well, what if you see a cat like this, one of these savanna cats? Looks very much like an ocelot, doesn't it? Well, believe it or not, besides looking like those spotted cats, you have house cats that could look like this. This picture just amazes me because the coloring is exactly that of a mountain lion. Look at the tail. It's much thinner tail. That would be a diagnostic thing for a biologist, is the size or the width of the tail, but it's got the black tip on it. And so people seeing this quickly or at a distance or low light levels, they will describe exactly to a T a cougar. But you're like, yeah, but that's so small and tiny. No one's going to mistake that. Well, there's house cats that are much larger, have a much closer build to a cougar than anything. They can easily be mistaken if you have no way of telling reference to size how big that cat is. And so these are often mistaken as cougars. And here's the arch nemesis, what we typically get reports of. When it comes to those Black Panthers, if you have no scale, a black house cat, especially a hefty black house cat from a distance, low light, quick glimpse can easily look like a quote unquote Black Panther, one of those larger cats. So the thing with all those house cats, they're everywhere and they tend to wander outside. And so people don't expect to see them in some places, but house cats can be found anywhere. They can be found in people's backyards. They can be found on the farm. They can be found in the forest in the middle of nowhere. And so these can easily be mistaken for a cat that they're not. But you always have people, and again, I'm not people see something. I will never tell anyone they didn't see something out there. I know they saw something, but trying to figure out exactly what they saw can be difficult. And it will happen to the best of the best. So let's talk a little bit about the human eyes. And so we'll throw up a picture of Steve Buscemi, and then we'll turn his picture upside down. And so you have these two pictures here, one right side up, one upside down. And you're looking at them, and then you realize it's really messed up, and my eyes might not have picked that up. That right-hand picture was so wonky, because sometimes your eyes your brain fills in the gap of what your eyes expect to see. So let's think about this. Let's think about going to a magic show. Now, you might not go to a magic show as an adult, but as a kid, you probably like them. But I will tell you, if you ever seen a magician perform, you know that they're going to try to fool you. They're going to try to play a trick so it looks like they're performing magic. And so I have never, no matter how hard I tried, I have never, especially like the card play, the card tricks and things like that, your eyes cannot pick up what the magician does, and they fool your eyes all the time, even though your brain is saying, don't get fooled. Your brain is still getting fooled. Your eyes are still getting fooled. Now, imagine your brain telling your eyes, instead of your brain trying to help your eyes out, imagine your brain trying to fool your eyes. Because here's what happens, folks. When humans were evolving thousands and thousands of years ago, and we were living on the land with all these crazy wild animals, there were lots of animals out there that could kill us. I mentioned saber-toothed tigers, cave bears, lots of these big carnivorous animals that if a human from way back when wasn't paying attention, they can become the meal for that large carnivore. So human brains developed, hey, if I'm going to stay alive, I better detect the danger as quickly as possible. So whenever your eyes are looking at something, especially if you're in the forest and you see something quick, your brain is saying, is it danger? Is it danger? And so your brain is saying, look for those big, scary animals first, whether or not it's a saber-toothed tiger or cave bear or cougar or black panther or anything. Your brain is trying to convince your eyes into seeing something that could potentially kill you. Now, we carry those traits, even though we no longer live in caves. Our human brain is designed to try to keep us safe and to detect danger as quickly as possible. And you're thinking, well, it still can't account for the thousands and thousands of observations. I'm telling you it can, because I don't know if anyone has ever seen this video. I just have a screenshot of it. But this was a reporter, actually in Utah, in the state I'm at now. She was reporting on, I don't even know what the particular thing she was reporting on, but as she was reporting, this animal walked right past her during the middle of her report. And she freaked out. She's like, I don't know what's walking towards me. And the thing walked right on by and disappeared in the bushes. And it was funny because on that news channel, people were saying, dude, that was a mountain lion. That was a cougar that walked right past you. And so Good Morning America played this clip, which is seen all over the US. And they had literally thousands, if not tens of thousands of people saying, that was a cougar that walked by that reporter. Lo and behold, the person that owned this dog contacted the news station and said, that was my dog that walked by the reporter. Its name is such and such. And so we 110% know it was a dog. But here you have tens of thousands of people seeing a cougar. And so when people say, oh, how could thousands of people see something? Is very, very easy if the mind is telling you what it wants to see. So with that, my friends, it's pretty much why the eyewitness account can't be used as proof. And I don't know if you saw that, but a lot of times when people will recount their time of seeing a cougar, especially in the East, it will be, oh, I was coming home late at night and a cat ran across and it was as wide as the road. Your eyes are wonderful, but you can't really trust your eyes. And here's the thing, if we can't trust our eyes, well, at least we can trust the news stations, right? I'm sorry, but that's so funny, because one of the things I was asked to investigate, and this was years ago, was when this report started coming out in Mississippi, Hernando, Mississippi, and they were talking about the cougar or the Black Panther that was filmed in Hernando, Mississippi. Reporter went out there to cover the cougar story, and this turned out to be a house cat. I got into a heated debate with with a news station out of Nashville that was running these news stories and just telling the public there's mountain lions out there, and they're showing pictures of house cats. And so I hate to say it, but media, news, you can't really trust what you hear nowadays, and especially with social media. So anyway, I'm going to start wrapping up, but I do want to show you a couple of things that has happened throughout my career. Because one of the things when I was in Tennessee, I was their big game coordinator, chief of wildlife. I became their de facto cougar detective because we were getting sightings way back when I was there. Now, remember, as a biologist, and it's not just me, but biologists in all the state agencies, we're dying to find evidence of a cougar, especially where they are not known to exist. And so the only way we can say, yes, we have cougars is if we have irrefutable evidence. And so I'm going to show you a couple of things that many of these are really pictures that were sent to me when I was playing cougar detective in Tennessee. And so people would say, oh, I got a photo of a cougar. And they'd show me something like this. And they're like, see, it's right down there. It's like, I cannot see what that black dot is. I had someone send me this photo and they're like, you see the cougar in it? I'm like, I can't tell if that's a cougar, but that's one big fat raccoon on the tree. But most of the pictures that were sent to me were like this. They're blurry. I will tell you, I think that's a fox in that photo just by the morphological shape of that animal. This was sent in. I believe this is a house cat, but you cannot confirm anything. None of these photos can be guaranteed what they are when they're this blurry. Now, a lot of photos come in like this, say, told you we had cougars. I'm like, sir or ma'am, that's a bobcat. Most of the bobcat pictures that come in are like this, where you can't see the tail. And so people will see kind of like a uniform brown picture, but you can see some of the stripes on the legs. That's a bobcat as well. I had one commissioner in Tennessee swear he finally got a photo of a cougar, and he sent me this. And it's about as classic bobcat as you can get. Not only does it look like a bobcat, it's got the white behind the ears and a bobtail. So these, I will tell you, these are not bad. This is where people are wanting to learn or needing to learn. The only ones that really got under my skin, is when people would send me photos like this. I received this probably a dozen times. Well-traveled photo. Everyone claimed this photo was taken in their state. This was actually taken in Texas. I was sent this because my neighbor got this on their trail camera, and this was actually taken in South Africa. And we do a lot of the background check. So it's the scam artists that really get under our skin. But I will tell you, the cool thing is, every once in a while you get a photo that makes you go, huh. So this was a photo that was sent to me. I forget what year, but I was working in Tennessee, and they sent it in, and I look at it, and you blow it up, and it's like, huh, that looks kind of cougarish. And so when you have something that looks like it might be worth investigating, we dig deeper. And so I asked the person, I said, do you have another photo from that exact same trail camera with another animal in it? They're like, oh, I sure do. I've got a great picture of a deer. So when we can do that, it's super easy. You can superimpose the two photos together, and you can see the log lines up perfectly. And so that cat that was cougarish has now shrunk, and it could literally walk underneath a deer. A cougar is about the size of a deer. And so that cat there is most likely a bobcat. You can't see the tail there, but when you can put that size perspective into it, it helps clarify what a lot of these animals are. Another really cool case study I had, I don't know if you can see my pointer, but there's this black blob out there. Well, the first time I saw this picture, I thought it was a bird flying across the field. But you can see, you'll see a little dot move here over the next couple pictures. It moves ever so slightly. And this person was saying, I have a black panther in the back of my field. You got to do something. And I tried explaining the details about a black panther, but the person was very adamant and they were contacting the governor of Tennessee. So I was instructed to go investigate. So I ended up going out there and hanging trail cameras. And guess, after 2 weeks of checking these, I got this photo. I'm like, ooh, there's something there. Kind of looks like a dog. And sure enough, there's his friend. So you had two labs, a yellow lab and a black lab, that would wander this person's property pretty much only as it was getting dark. Never saw it during the day, but as it was getting dark. And she was seeing these dogs wandering in the back 40, and she assumed the black one was a black panther. And now I'm really going to start wrapping up because we're getting overtime. Last case study. Someone sent me this photo and said, aha, I finally got it. I proved that there are black panthers out there. And they sent me this photo. And it took me a while to see what they were talking about, but you see that object sitting there on the bottom right. And just so you know, this is a cow carcass here. This was a farm in Tennessee. So when I blew up that photo, you see this, and I'm like, okay, there's an animal-like creature there. Don't know what it is. It looks like there's a face there. I think that's a leaf on the something there. So I had to go out and investigate again. And this person, I asked them, I said, do you have any other photos from this trail camera that you set up? And she's like, oh, I could show you the wolf. And so she shows me just so you know, this is Tennessee where we don't have wolves. She showed me this photo and she's like, there's the wolf. And I explained to her that was a melanistic coyote. It is a black coyote. They occur every once in a while. Then it dawned on me. I'm like, do you have any other pictures of this wolf? And she flashed through, and then she showed me this picture. And I'm like, that's it. And so if you look at this original cat-like looking animal, you can see there's this white mark right on the front chest. And on this melanistic coyote, it's got a white patch on its front chest. And so even that person finally said, you know what, I think you're right, which took a lot out of them, but it was not a black panther. So that's it. Hey, I remember this thing at the very beginning when I asked you to write down a sentence. Does anyone know, can anyone tell me what that sentence said? Did anyone write it down? If not, that's okay. I will show you. You could lie to me and say that you got it right, but here's what that sentence says. Nobody's going to come. Thank you, Darcy. Nobody's going to call me a liar. I know what I saw, but we actually have, there's 2 A's in there. And I know that's just a small piece of information that you got wrong, but that's how your brain starts filling in the picture. Even when like you see something fast, your brain is kind of telling you everything that you see, even though it's not exactly correct. So the type of tail an animal might have, or the coloration, sometimes it's very difficult to get all those details when you see something quickly, and especially when your brain is trying to tell you what you're seeing. So anyway, your mind typically tells your eye what it wants you to see. So with that, that's the reason why cats in North America can be confusing. Now, I hope I didn't offend anyone. This this is what you learn when you study wildlife in North America, or pretty much anywhere. Fascinating topic. I love being a wildlife biologist, but if you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. But hold on. Got to give huge shout out to all the folks I got photos from. Mark Payton, again, gave me a bunch of the photos. I do teach this stuff on my website. I don't do it too much anymore. But interesting enough, this photo here, this cat's name, this was at the Chattanooga Zoo. Cat's name was Kobe or Colby. This cougar at the Chattanooga Zoo in Tennessee was actually captured in the wild in Tennessee and put on display at Chattanooga. Now, having said that, I will tell you, when the wildlife officers caught this cougar in the wild in Tennessee, it was already declawed. So it was someone's captive pet that was released. And so it became the cougar on display at the Chattanooga Zoo. Unfortunately, that cat passed away a number of years ago. So anyway, with that, Trish, I don't know if there's any questions in the chat. I was kind of looking, kind of not looking, but if anyone has a question, let me know, or you can you could open up your microphone. I think we're all civil enough here. If you want to ask a question or tell a story or anything like that, by all means, remember, we're being recorded. So,
hey, Daryl, Darcy, way above asked about the weight/size differences in male and female mountain lions.
very good. I'm going to use nerdy biological terms. Lots of times, animals are what we call sexually dimorphic, where the males or the females, one could be way larger than the other. Cougars somewhat display that. The toms, which are the male cats, the adult male cats, tend to be larger than the female cats, but it's not as drastic as what we see in some species. But yes, the toms are typically the ones that will weigh from 150 pounds to 200 pounds. The females will typically go from 90 pounds to 150 pounds. But having said that, you could have a wonking big female that is way up there, or you could have a scrawny male. So, but for the most part, the males tend to be larger in their adult size than the females. Anybody else?
My biggest question, and Darcy here, sorry, I can't find the hand raise. I've looked all over my screen. It's
That's all right.
So the biggest thing I'm dealing with where I live right now, like there was actually a recent sighting of a cougar. I checked that I measured, it's 100 yards from my house. It's kind of
Nice.
cool. I've had elk go through my front yard regularly, so that's, no surprise. Anyway, I have neighbors who are busy freaking out because we all go hiking up in DNR land, and most of us with dogs. I don't worry about it. I assume a cat has seen me and has decided that, yeah, person, dog, don't want to mess with you. But
Yes.
do you have a course that kind of covers that I can point
I do.
folks who aren't looking to
I could
kill the animal?
Yeah, I can send you a link. I teach bear and cougar safety class.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think if you know my email address or Facebook, like send me an instant message or something on Facebook, and
Okay.
I'll send you the link to that particular class. But you're absolutely right. When you mentioned about a cougar being close to your house, I looked to my left because the mountains, it's getting dark here, so I can't show you the mountains with the camera, but I got 3 big toms. I live, it's critical mule deer winter range, and so I've got a couple hundred mule deer that take up residence at the base of the mountain during the winter. And Department of Wildlife said there's usually about 3 big toms that pretty much stake out this area all throughout the winter. And it's the coolest thing to know you're walking in an area, and you can pretty much guarantee that cougars have seen you and you have not seen them.
Yeah.
Now, and I'll apologize, Darcy. One of the reasons I did this class, I kind of favored the East Coast on this because there's been just a lot of talk about all the cougar expansion and seeing cougars in the East. So I just wanted to kind of set the stage as where we are with the cougar expansion. They're definitely heading eastward, but they're a Western species right now. And it's awesome living in the West, knowing that these animals are all around us and we rarely ever get to see them. Does anyone else have a question? Darcy, your microphone's still on, but if anyone else has a question or comment or anything. If not, folks,
Daryl,
oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Kendra in the chat wanted to know if a breeding population has been confirmed in Arkansas, that they've seen official estimates of up to 40 individuals.
Yep. Awesome question. All those slides I showed where the Midwestern expansion is happening, there are some states, Arkansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, they are right on the verge. They have not gotten a picture of any newborn cubs, but I bet you within the next year or two, it will be like rock solid. Yes, we have breeding populations in either Arkansas or Missouri or Oklahoma. They're right on the cusp, because every year they're getting literally dozens of confirmed photos. Most of those are males, but they have documented a few females. There was a female that was caught in a trap in the southern portion of Missouri near the Arkansas line. And so knowing that a whole bunch of males and an occasional female, that's all we need, is that occasional female be in that area, because you know the males are going to find them. So yes, Arkansas is really close. It hasn't been made official yet because they don't have that one piece of information, but they're right on the verge. And I will say, I thought Mick was going to ask. I could be wrong. I thought he unmuted himself, but Mick, if you had a question, go right ahead.
Hey, I was just going to thank you for putting this on. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, good. I appreciate it. I love doing this stuff, and I love teaching people about wildlife because, like I said at the start, our knowledge about wildlife is what keeps them protected. So the more we know, I will tell you, one of the things that worries me most about cougar expansion to the east is the fact that we have generations and generations of humans that have not lived with cougars. And just like the big bad wolf, cougars can strike fear in people. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people in the east that don't want cougars to come back, which worries me. So when you're hoping for one or two to establish themselves and you get a yeehaw that doesn't like them, they could set you back decades.
Hey, Daryl.
What's keeping the Florida Panthers from expanding north and west? Was that what you were going to ask, Trish, or no?
No, actually, before that question, Darcy asked if there's anything in your library of videos about hiking safety in cougar country.
Yeah, I tell you what, I will post the cougar safety video on. If you follow on Facebook, I do have a Wildlife for You education page. I will post it in there. So if you're familiar, if you've never been to the Wildlife for You Facebook page, just type in Wildlife for You spelled out. And I will post not just the recording of today's class, but also a cougar safety class as well. There's some really, really good videos of encounters. Like when I say good videos, these are, there was one, I don't know if anyone saw it, but a couple of years ago, there was a hiker in Utah that ran into a female cougar with her cubs. And that mama cougar came at him hissing and growling, and he backed up, it seemed like, for a half a mile. And that cat kept chasing and chasing, and she was hissing and spitting. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but that was filmed not far from here, about 30 miles down the way in American Fork, Utah. Anyway, that is a classic example of defensive behavior by the cougar. Now, if anyone knows me, all the bear safety and the cougar safety, it doesn't matter what species of animals we're talking about. We're looking at the behavior that animal is showing. And I typically break it down into offensive behavior, like predatory behavior, where they're looking for food or a meal, versus defensive behavior, where they're trying to protect themselves or their cubs. And those animals react differently. between offensive and defensive behavior. But between species, very similar type of reactions where, anyway, watch those videos and I'll explain quite a bit the difference between offensive and defensive behavior and how you should react.
Okay, and Lonnie's question about what's keeping the Florida Panthers from expanding north and west.
People, we're still getting more and more cougars venturing further northward. Now, I will tell you, I think about 30 years ago, that Florida population dropped as low, I forget what the lowest estimate was, but we're talking 20 or 30 animals. The biologists were really concerned about that population, especially they were starting to see a lot of deleterious effects from inbreeding. So you're getting animals with crooked limbs or bent tails, and you could tell that they were suffering from all the inbreeding. Believe it or not, Florida, I think they worked with the Fish and Wildlife Service. They brought in some cats from Texas, because remember, the eastern cats and western cats are all the same cats. And so they brought some cats from Texas to breed with some of the cougars in Florida to get a new dose of genetics to increase that diversity so there wasn't as much inbreeding. And it has helped tremendously. And so that population has grown. I think the latest estimate is well over 200 cats down in Florida. Because of that, even healthy cougar populations, they're not all piled on top of each other. These things have huge home ranges. So those 200 cats are expanding, and they're being found in more and more places further north. But you have to understand the East, especially Florida, is heavily populated. Now, you'll have swamp areas that they thrive in, but it's happening. Their range is expanding, but it's expanding slowly.
Hey, so you just said that western and eastern cougars are exactly the same. I've seen it quite a few times where people have said that Florida Panthers are not the original Florida Panthers. They're a lot bigger, doing a lot more damage because of the introduction of western genetics into them. So that's completely false.
What they said about which part is completely false?
That the Florida Panthers are now bigger than they were in the past. And doing a lot more damage.
I hear that argument all the time. You know where I hear that argument the most is when we're talking about gray wolves, because when the Fish and Wildlife Service reintroduced gray wolves into the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, the wolves that used to live in that area 100 years ago were pretty much wiped out. And so they had to get gray wolves from northern population. And so there's a bunch of different subspecies of wolves, but the wolves that they got from Canada, people are saying, oh, they're much larger. They're pretty much, they're all gray wolves. There's slight differences here and there, but people say, oh, you didn't put the same species of wolf into Yellowstone. Yes, it's the exact same species. It came from Canada, so they might be a little bit larger, but there's not that much of a difference. Now, for the longest time, Mick, as far as the Florida panther goes, because they used to segregate species based on physical properties, it was Puma concolor corii, which said the Florida panthers are different. And then finally, all this genetic work came out, and they're really no different. And so, yeah, the people that say that bringing in those Texas cougars is now making a different breed or a different kind of cougar, it's so subtle that it's probably not even recognizable. Anybody else? Well, I enjoyed this. I haven't done these in quite some time, but I'll gladly do more if people are interested.
I am. Just for the record.
You don't count. You've seen every talk I've ever given. All right. With that, folks, I am going to end the recording. I want to thank everyone for participating and for being a great crowd and like not getting too rowdy on me. Something opened up on my computer and I don't know how to close it. So, oh, that's not what I wanted to do, but I guess I'm doing it. Let me stop my recording.